Hello, everyone. Welcome to our show, Racial and Social Justice Beyond the Dome. Thank you for being here. I'm your host, Dan Yu, and here with Kerry Boehner, the president of the Notre Dame Club of Pittsburgh. Tonight, our guest is Mike Brown, ND class of 2001. He is a regional director of athletics advancement in development within the university relations at the University of Notre Dame, a native of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Brown graduated with a degree in business and technology. While at ND, he was involved in numerous extracurricular activities, including Voices of Faith Choir, Troop ND, and was the founder of the First Class Steppers. In April of '99, he was named Notre Dame's first Black Leprechaun mascot and served 2 years in that role. He also has a master's degree in management from Cardinal Stritch University. After a long tenure with Fidelity Information Services, FIS, Mike returned back to his alma mater. Since being back, Mike's been active in the Indy community. He's the MC every Friday night for football pep rallies. Is currently serving on the University Relations Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Unity Task Force. So Mike and his wife, Jamie, who's a double domer, right? And
they have me often.
There you go. They have a daughter, Harper. So, Mike, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Hey, man, thank you, Dan, for the wonderful introduction, and thanks for really to you, Kerry, and the Indy Club of Pittsburgh for creating this space for these conversations. So, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here, and I'm looking forward to our chat here today.
Absolutely. So, Mike, you were one of sports' most recognizable mascots, the face of the program for 2 years. So do people still recognize you?
Yeah, you know what? They do. I'm a little, I weigh a little bit more than I used to weigh back then. So I say my muscles have expanded, if you will. So, but no, people still recognize me. I think mainly one, because I kept the beard. And I didn't keep the beard because I wanted to keep leprechaun fame. I kept it because my wife actually likes it. So there. And then the second thing is I now work back at the university, right? So I'm around more people who are coming to campus more often, and so I'm in front of more people. And there are people who have said, "You look familiar," and then when I tell them why I probably look familiar, they immediately say, "That's right." And it's gotten to the point, Dan, where I've now taken pictures with, let's say, a kid when they were 4 or 5 years old. And then I've now taken another picture with that same kid when they were maybe a freshman or a sophomore at Notre Dame. So it's pretty wild to see those before and then and now type photos that I've been able to capture.
That's great. Well, so now you grew up in Milwaukee, right? And you lived in a pretty busy house, right?
Yeah, it's a very busy house. So I grew up with my mother. I have 2 younger sisters. I have an aunt who's passed, a late aunt right now who lived with us. I have another aunt and her 2 sons, and all of us, I'll call us, we were the core of the house, if you will. So what did I name? The 8 of us were kind of the core. And then my grandmother lived with us at the beginning when I was a kid, and then when I got into high school. And then over the course of basically my 18 years in that house, we had to have had a good 15 or 20 people live with us at some point in time in that house. My room was in the basement at one point. I had my own room for a split second there, which was the good life. But it was just when it comes to family and when it comes to just our community, everyone was always welcome at our home. And I had an uncle, one of my grandmother's brother, he suffered a stroke. And he moved in with us so that my aunts and my mom and we can all help care for him. He ended up being the guy who helped me learn how to drive. He was the one that was brave enough to let me drive when he was giving me instructions. He's the one that helped me when we had a paper route together, basically, right? Where he would drive the car, and because I was in middle school, we would get up at 4 or 5 in the morning, and I would go out on my paper routes with him. But I'd be the one jumping out of the car. So and that it happened time and time again. We had many people live with us, but yeah, so that's kind of my core. So when it comes to family, people talk about their nucleus or their core family being a mom, a dad, a sister, brother, if you will. My family is all those people that I just listed off and more. My family expands, and you got to keep me honest here, Dan, cut me off, but my
No,
family also expands into my neighborhood when I grew up.
sure.
There's people who were in my neighborhood where we all looked out for each other. We all helped each other out. And then it even went even deeper when it came to family, when it came to our church. And so we went to church. Going to Notre Dame and taking theology class was probably the easiest class I took. Not because I went to a Catholic high school or anything like that. I'm not Catholic, didn't grow up in the Catholic church at all. But it's because I went to church. We went to church at least five times a week.
Wow.
We would go to a morning service on Sundays, to an evening service on Sundays. We would go to Tuesday night prayer service. We would go to Thursday night Bible class. And then I was an usher, and so we had usher practice. I was also in the choir, and so we had choir practice. So I would say I was in church and like in it, not just sitting on the bench, but involved, active in church, Sunday school, the whole nine, my entire life. And so when I took theology my freshman year at Notre Dame, it was like, this stuff is easy. I know this stuff inside and out. So, but our church family, the reason why I bring that up is because my church family is also part of my family. There are people that I've gone to church with who we call cousins. Like they're not my cousins or they're not my uncle or my aunt, right? But we call them aunts and cousins because it's that type of affection that we have for each other through a lot of different things that we've all gone through in our lives.
Gotcha. So I want to share a picture to the audience real quick. This is you and the siblings or cousins. Is that right? So
yeah.
Hold on a second here. And can you see this? So this is. Can everybody? Can you see this, Mike?
I can't, but.
No.
Let's see it share. How about that? Does that work?
Not yet.
No, that's odd. All right, that's okay. So let's get back to the show here. So there's a village, right, of people that you had growing up.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
An absolute village of people, and I'm thankful for that village of people. I've talked so far mainly about my mother's side of the family, right, because I grew up living with my mother's side of the family, but it was an entire village because it spread to the church community. And then I had my dad's side of the family as well. So I've been pretty open about my relationship with my father. It's healing, right, at the moment, right? We reconciled some things about a year ago, quite honestly. But so I wasn't as active and engaged with my dad throughout my life. But my grandmother and my great grandmother, so his mom and dad, my mother and grandmother, I did have a good relationship with them and a strong one. And they were just absolute giants in the community. They were just civil servants. They had an organization called Career Youth Development, where they basically focused on helping serve people in the community who were either poor, sometimes overlooked. When it came to helping kids who got in trouble with the law, they offered programs and services to help them and put them on a path toward bettering their lives. They dedicated their lives to that type of work. And so I had a strong village on my mom's side of the family. And then while I didn't live with my other side of the family, if you will, I was engaged with them, and they were just giants in our community in Milwaukee, to the point where my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, was just honored. Her memory was honored just this past week by a highway going up in her name. There's a stretch of highway that represented the area where she lived, worked, served the community. They named the stretch of the highway in Milwaukee on I-43. The Janetta Simpson Robinson Highway. So was very honored that happened. They put it up on her birthday, what would have been her 80th birthday, which was very special. And so it was I'm on a high.
That's incredible. Well, congratulations to your family. That must be such a wonderful thing to have a family member recognized for all of the work that they did for the community. So that's a terrific story. And we'll have we'll share a link in the show notes after to some of the articles about that dedication, which was terrific. So Mike, you're growing up in Milwaukee, and how did you make your path to ND? Well, how did it come to your life?
Yeah, so really the long and short end of it is that village that I mentioned, right? So we went to church all the time. My grandmother and my mom would always brag about me at church, which was very embarrassing, but I'm glad they did because during the church announcements, they would talk about some award that Michael won, right? And it's like, put my head down. Well, there's a lady who heard that announcement. Her name is Lee Davis. Lee Davis said, I want that young man to come work at my company. So she approached me about coming to work with her organization when I was a rising senior in high school. I go work for that company over the summer, heading into my senior year in high school. At the welcome lunch for me being at that company, I sit next to a guy who's a 1983 Notre Dame grad. His name is Mike Peterson. Mike Peterson grills me. I'm talking, what's your grades? What are your test scores? What activities are you involved with? I'm like, my God, I don't know you. Like, what's going on? And I share, my sheet. And he said, hey, where are you going to school? And honestly, I was headed to Marquette. That was the number one school on my list. I had looked at a few other places, but it was mainly Marquette and then Wisconsin. And he's the one that put Notre Dame into my life. And so he said, you got to at least apply, just see what happens. He made sure, like to the point where it was a mail-in application back then. He actually came to my high school when I was printing off the application and made sure I had stamped and put it in the mail and made sure it got sent off to ND. And really honestly, right, I didn't really know. I didn't know where ND was. I never visited Notre Dame. And so I applied, but I didn't have any expectations around going, if you will. And so when I did get in, I ultimately got faced with a choice. I had a full scholarship to Marquette. And there was a program where I qualified for a full ride. Beautiful. And then I get into Notre Dame, and it's an exciting. I'm like, wow, I just got into Notre Dame, which we called, for me in my house, we called it a name brand school. It's like wearing name brand shoes. Notre Dame was a name brand university, right? So, but I didn't have a full scholarship. So I was able to successfully, through the financial aid package that Notre Dame put together for me, along with other scholarships that I won outside of ND, it was about a 50% scholarship, if you will, all in. And so I was going to be responsible for the other 50%. And so I didn't know what to really do, quite honestly. And so I talked to my pastor of my church, and I said, hey, I got to make a decision. It's either Notre Dame or Marquette. And he said, you got to go with your heart. And that's what I'll probably talk about a lot today is going with your heart, right? So he said, what's your heart telling you to do? And I said, well, my heart's saying Notre Dame. And he said, that's what you got to do. And that was it. So from there, I had to work more. I had to take out some student loans that it took a while to pay off. But it's one of the best decisions I made. Going with my heart to go to Notre Dame was something that I thank God for the opportunity to have been able to even do that. And that's really, I dove into ND. I went in with really no expectations, if you will, right? But I knew it was a special opportunity, and I wanted to make the most of it. And that's kind of what set off what I'll say was an incredible just journey at Notre Dame in and of itself.
So Mike Peterson sounds like he was filled with the Notre Dame spirit.
He was all in. He was all in. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you get into Notre Dame and you go to freshman orientation. And so tell us about that. I think it's a terrific story.
So freshman orientation, right? So most people that I talk to, most of my friends that came in for freshman orientation, I think Belinda Bryant's on the line, so she'll know this for a fact here. But most people bring their mom, their dad, right? Maybe a sibling,
Yeah.
right? And we're talking maybe 4 or 5 people may come help move in. So you heard about my village. Well, I don't know, half of my village came to freshman move-in weekend. I thought it was 25 people that came in, but I think you just verified in a photo that there were 30 people who drove from Milwaukee, and some parts of my family lived in Illinois, that all came in to help move me into my dorm freshman year at Notre Dame.
Did you even have to carry a box?
Yeah, you know what? I did have to carry some boxes because we had to come in waves. They came in waves. So, it was my grandmother, her sister, and a couple cousins that took me initially, and then the rest came in waves throughout the course of the weekend. And we took a picture. That's one of the most special pictures in my heart, in front of the Joyce Center on that Sunday.
Yeah.
At the concluding ceremonies outside the Joyce Center, where all 30 of us were in that picture. And it's just a beautiful moment because it really did sum up my upbringing. It's got my actual family in it. It's got people from my church in it. People from my high school are in it. Neighbors from the community are all in it. I'm telling you, it's a real thing. And so, yeah, it was a special moment.
That's terrific. And so you get to ND and you're involved with a bunch of things. You start the steppers group, right? And so you're totally involved at Notre Dame. And how did you find cheerleading?
Yeah, I'll tell you. So I dove into the whole ND experience, and so because I just poured my whole self into essentially everything I did there, my roommates, I mean, they saw the spirit and the passion that I had for everything, and they said, Mike, this was the fall of my sophomore year. We were at a football game, and they were like, that's going to be you in the field next year. You're going to be the leprechaun. And I was like, man, get out of here. Like, I'm not a cheerleader. I don't know. There's no way. And so they were like, no, we got to do this. We got to make this happen. And that's kind of where the seed got planted.
Yeah.
And then when the workshop, the tryout information system came along, I was like, all right, I'll give it a go. But I do want to pause because I almost did not give it a go.
Really?
In the spring of my sophomore year, I actually applied to go to London to study abroad. That's when the study abroad programs were really picking up, and I got really excited about the possibility of studying in London, basically during my junior year at Notre Dame. So I applied for the London program, and I was not accepted to that program, and so not getting accepted into that program, which I was pretty disappointed in, because I thought I had qualifications that made it fit for it. That not being accepted to that program, that door essentially being closed, is what opened the door for me to actually try out for Leprechaun. Because had I gone to London, I wouldn't have tried out. So I always talk about God and blessings and doors and all that stuff. Like any job I don't get, anything that doesn't happen in my life, I call it another London program experience, because it could be something that happens or doesn't happen, if you will, that paves the way for something else. So anyhow, I try out, I invite the world, okay? Every club, everyone in my dorm, any organization that I had been involved in up until that point in Notre Dame, I invited everybody to the tryout. And it's an open tryout. And again, similar to how I applied at Notre Dame, I just poured everything into it and said, let me just see what happens. I'm gonna have a good time with it. And then I ended up winning, right? It was like, I really wasn't, I had fun with the tryout. It's a pretty rigorous process where you have to do a mock pep rally, a mock media interview. You go through these game situations. And then, I thought I had fun. I knew I had a fun time. At the time, there were 2 leprechauns that were being selected each year. And I thought, well, maybe I did okay, and I might be the number 2, leprechaun, which at the time was called the Olympic squad leprechaun. So I was like, well, maybe they'll give me a shot. I have no cheer experience. I don't know what I'm doing. And so when I went to see the results that evening after tryouts and saw my name, Mike Brown, varsity leprechaun, it was crazy. And it just set off an entire storm of, there's a lot of media that jumped on it. A lot of folks were calling. This is before cell phone age and before social media. So all the information was getting communicated via email or there was local news coverage of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just took off. And I'll tell you, man, a lot of people did put a lot of emphasis on me being a Black Leprechaun. I talked to my cheer coach right when I got the role, and she said, Mike, listen, you got blue and gold blood like everybody else. And I was like, man, that's pretty cool. So that I took that line that she gave me. Her name is Jo Minton. She's retired now. That's kind of what I leaned into. I said, look, I got blue and gold blood like everybody else. And I did not hide the fact by any means that I'm Black. Like, make no mistake about it. My full culture, my upbringing, my family atmosphere, environment, my energy, it was all me all the time. I can't hide who I am. And so I definitely never hid anything. I didn't necessarily walk around with my chest beaten either, though, saying I'm Black, and I'm special, so look at me. It was more like, look, I'm me. I'm Black, and I'm proud of being Black. I'm proud of how I was raised. And I felt like it was an opportunity, quite honestly, to bring some new things to the table in the role, quite honestly, right? A lot of my influences, and this is probably something that people don't know, a lot of the things I did that people thought were new were actually influenced by a lot of the television shows and the movies that I watched growing up as a kid. Some of the new cheers, if you will, right? And I don't know if this is like plagiarism or what, but some of the new cheers that I did came from this movie called School Days. The movie called School Days is like a lot of, let's just say, a lot of Black people have seen it. I don't know how many white people have even heard of it, but a lot of people in the Black community have seen School Days, right? Again, like at least I did, right? And a lot of my influence for some of the cheers came from that movie. And so it was just taking some things that were part of my culture and just, finding a way to weave it into the ND environment. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I even had, in the title Worlds Together, and this is how we'll continue, is the Steppers.
Yeah.
This is where this was a magical, special moment for me. I think it was the last pep rally of the year, my last pep rally ever. My grandmother was there, my late grandmother, or my mother, my maternal late grandmother, my mom, my niece. There's a picture from all this too. They came to the pep rally that night. It was against Boston College, so they were there, which was special. It was their first one ever. And then on top of that, the first class Steppers, a group that I founded, right, also performed, and I performed with them at the pep rally. So it was just a special moment where so many of my worlds were just together.
Coming together, yeah.
And it was an emotional. That was I could not hold it together that evening. That was a special night at last pep rally.
And so what was your first appearance like? Did you have the butterflies?
Oh my God, yeah. So first appearance was really a couple of weeks after I was named Leprechaun. My first appearance was the spring game that same year. So this is spring of '99, and you got to understand, Dan, we have suits that are tailored for us, but at that point I didn't have one, so my suit was too big. I didn't know what I was doing. My socks didn't match. Like, I was just out there, and we just had a good time, and it was a nice way to just kind of break yourself into the role. But I found out very quickly, how significant the role was in the indie community at a minimum. I mean, these kids, you see their faces, and they light up when the Leprechaun is around. A lot of people who are in wheelchairs, we work with a lot of people who were special needs. The Leprechaun came around, and their faces, their eyes lit up. And it was on that day where I realized, like, oh boy, like this is serious. And so I took the role very serious, right? I really did try to make the most of every second that I was able to have the opportunity to serve in the role. And because what I realized quickly is that what may be a moment for me could be a lifetime memory for others. Right. And so I tried to make every high five, every photo. I stayed, like, after I would have to get begged to leave a crowd because I was signing as many things as I could, many pictures as I could. Like, Mike, we gotta go. So they used to have it was Mike duty, what they called it on game day, because I would just, I enjoyed being out with people and bringing joy to their lives in that capacity.
So what skills did you bring, right, from your upbringing or maybe from your first couple of years at Notre Dame? What skills did you bring to the role of the leprechaun?
Yeah, so I would say it was spirit, it was energy, it was passion. So those things have been core to pretty much everything I've done in my life, right? Our family was very spirited. We celebrate birthdays like crazy. We celebrate everything, man. It was like everything was a celebration. So we had a lot of spirit. We supported each other at different events, whether I was playing football or my sister was playing basketball, or we had pageants that my sisters were in, or you name it. We all rallied around each other and support each other. So that was that spirit. The energy was just in all the different things that we did, right? I mean, we were always active and involved in doing something. And so that's kind of where that energy came from. And again, it permeated my entire life. And the passion, a lot of people, and this is one of the things I tell some prospective students at Notre Dame who are looking to try to apply to go there, they always ask, what do you have to do to get in? And I said, I never looked at it that way, right? It was more, I did things that I was passionate about. I loved being an usher in church. It brought me great joy. I loved singing in the choir. I love volunteering. I love doing these things. I didn't do it to pad or build my resume, right? I didn't do it to like make myself look better for a college application. I did it because I was passionate about it and I enjoyed it, right? So, and it was when the time came then where it was like time to apply for colleges that I had then built up now a resume that was pretty strong. But I did things that I was passionate about. So just like with the leprechaun, I'm passionate about sports. I believe in the power of sports and how it brings people together, brings families together. There's lessons that get learned in sport and activity, goes across racial lines. You know, we talk about even the context of this conversation. The power of sports, I just believe in it deeply and what they can do to change people's lives. And so I'm passionate about it. So becoming a leprechaun to cheer on at a sporting event, are you kidding me? Sign me up. I'll do that. Like, yeah. So it really just, it all aligned with everything that was core to who I am and became as a person.
And so after Notre Dame, you're the leprechaun for a couple of years. After Notre Dame, you went back to that same company to go work. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did. Yes, I went back to the same company. I actually was with them it was a span of 19 years. So from 1996 until 2015, quite honestly, right? I was with them as an intern or a full-time employee that entire time. So when I started as a computer programmer, which was like, just people couldn't believe it. Their mind is blown when they realized I was a coder. I was a Java developer for 8 years of my life, or maybe 11 years of my life, I guess it was. Way well beyond those days now. I don't even know where to start with coding anymore. But nonetheless, I was with them and had a great experience there. I really grew as a person with there. My professional network grew, my experiences grew, and it really helped pay for school, right? The money I made during the summers helped pay for my time at Notre Dame. And so it really worked. And so when I told them in 2015 that I had taken a job at Notre Dame, number one, I had been there for a long time and there was no love lost, nothing. They weren't surprised. I'll tell you, when I say I was leaving to go at Notre Dame, the entire company was very familiar with my passion and affection for the university. And so when I told them I was leaving after 19 years of being there, everyone was just super excited. And talk about some crazy bring stuff together moments here. Now that I'm working at Notre Dame, my old boss and a number of other people I used to work with have kids who are now students at ND. So
Wow.
The whole thing is crazy. But yeah, so we got like a little FIS Notre Dame network now, and I try to keep in contact with the families and the students accordingly. But it's been great.
And so, what inspired you to come back to Notre Dame?
So you know what? It came back to Father Ted, right? So Father Ted Hesberg, he passed away back in, I think it was was it February or March of 2015? It was right
Somewhere
around
there, yep.
Right around that time frame. And I was living in Chicago, working at FIS at the time. I watched online his memorial service that was held at the Joyce Center, which is where my office is now, actually, ironically. And I watched that, and it was a moving experience. I watched it. I'll never forget it. I had my laptop on the kitchen, the island, the tabletop, watched it, and just hearing so many wonderful people talk about him. Not him as just the president of the university, but just all the things he did in the fight for civil rights, for justice, for equality, and all the bold decisions he made. It moved me, it touched me. And so I ended up calling a friend and at Notre Dame. I said, hey, how was it to be in that arena for that moment? And they said it was absolutely incredible. And on that call, my friend mentioned, hey, have you ever thought about coming back to work at the university? And I said, yeah, maybe in 10, 15 years when I'm later in my career, I'm closer to retirement. I was like, I'll think about it. Like, I thought about it. But the next day, she sees a lady named Sarah Leepsher, who basically, he was forming a new team called Athletics Advancement at the university, which is within university relations. And basically she says, have you filled these roles yet? Sarah said no. And lady gave Sarah my name. And I talked to Sarah the next day. And I said, Sarah, I told Julie, who told me about this, I told her 10, 15 years, not 24 hours from now, give me a call when I come back. So anyhow, it's amazing, man. I'm telling you, when God is in the mix of things, Dan, when God is in works and you follow your heart, things just seem to fall in place, right? I talked to Sarah about this role, and again, it was all these things that I'm passionate about, and some of my gifts and my passions and what I'm calling my purpose all came together, right? So it was sports, which I love. I raised money for our athletics initiatives at university. So it was like, that's a perfect fit for me. I'm passionate about the power of sport. It's fundraising, right? Which is a relationship type of role. I'm passionate about engaging and working with people. I believe in the village, and I believe in the village of Notre Dame, right? So it's part of who I am, my core. And then I believe in Notre Dame. I believe in the university. I think it's a special place. I think it has a lot of special people. It definitely has its shortcomings, like all of us do. I think there's definitely a lot of things that can be improved there. And so, but you combine athletics, you combine fundraising and the gift of working with people, and you combine the university and the power of the university and what the good they can do in the world. And it was a no-brainer type of opportunity for me. And my wife, I'll tell you, she gets most of the credit, quite honestly, for all this coming together, because when I saw the role and the description of what it entailed, it was literally me on paper, right? It was one of those moments where I saw myself, and she was like, well, what's the problem? Why aren't you jumping through the roof excited about this? I said, well, it's a nonprofit organization. There's no commission. It changes our financial outlook is what I'll call it. And she said, if money's the only reason you wouldn't consider this, then you have to do it. And so I was like, all right, I took money out and so let's go. So
that's terrific. So really it's the skills you had growing up, right? And being engaged with people. And I don't think you mentioned this, but you weren't a coder the whole time. You were in sales at FIS for quite a while.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, so I was 11 years as a coder, and then in 2007, after many years of getting rejected over and over again, people would say I didn't have any sales experience. I'm like, I know I don't have any sales experience. I'm very aware of that. But I said I do have I have been in front of people and I'm comfortable in front of people. I literally put the Leprechaun experience on my resume for every sales interview that I had.
Absolutely.
I had to, in some cases, depending on who the hiring manager was, I would send them videos just so they can see the evidence of it. Because on paper, you got to understand, right? My resume said he has a business and technology degree. And I was a developer, right? It was all Java development this and web services that. And so I had to show that engagement piece and the relationship piece that I had as part of my my repertoire, if you will. And so, someone gave me an opportunity, and I'm thankful for them and taking a chance on me. Right, I didn't have any sales experience, but I had a lot of tools. Right, I had a lot of some gifts that just needed to be honed in a little bit and applied towards sales. And it all came together. I worked hard. Right, the first 2 years, I worked hard. and I still work hard today, but those first 2 years in sales were just a grind. But I learned a lot. I got my teeth cut a lot. I got told no a lot. I listened. I watched. I dove in, and then I finally, hit my stride. I'd say the final 6 years there, and started having a lot of success. And then came to Notre Dame after that.
Sure. And so over the course of your time from Notre Dame into your first part of your career, the second part of your career, and now making this, what I would call a major career pivot, even though it all seems like it kind of fits, it's still a pretty big pivot because you're going from financial technology into the nonprofit sector, but you're still bringing the skills you've developed. And I think it's a pretty cool story for our audience and whoever watches this after, because ultimately, in this environment, especially where people are losing jobs left and right, I think once you take a look at your history, you're still building skills the whole time.
Absolutely, no question. I mean, the word that gets used, the phrase that gets used is transferable skills, right?
Right.
And so, how do you take all your experiences across every aspect of your life, not just work-wise, right? But I delivered papers, yes, and that's part of my resume. But I also was an usher in church, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's greeting people, that's relationships, that's eye contact, body language, all these things, having a welcoming presence. So these are all things that you can translate to, right? Performing in a choir, right, is not it's a performance. You've got stage presence, right? It's all of it. So being in front of people, being engaging, being inviting and welcoming, these are all things, right? When you talk about those are all things that weren't jobs that I had a paycheck from doing, but they were valuable experiences. And absolutely, I talk about those things when it comes to having relationships skills and interpersonal skills overall. Those are all things that get put into the pitch, but it's all about transferable skills. I'm actually, I'm writing a book right now. It's about the history of leprechauns, and I'm in the middle of interviewing a bunch of leprechauns right now and just capturing their stories. And it's a wonderful, it's been a wonderful journey going through that process. But time and time again, I hear something from all of them that talks about how their time as leprechaun helped them in some way later in their careers, whether it was overcoming adversity, because not all the leprechauns got it the first time, right? Some of them were denied or were not in the position initially. Some went through some difficult times and had to work through those things. Some took those skills. Some leprechauns were introverts, which is crazy to even think about, and how they have to come out of themselves a little bit and do, but it pushed them. And so nonetheless, I'm learning, but those are all things. That's why I say the time as leprechaun is also a time in which there are skills that were very transferable that can be used in all kinds of careers. We've gone on to be in all kinds of jobs, right? Some people are lawyers and doctors, you name it, some teachers, but all of them have kind of pulled something from their experience and applied it to their careers.
Well, I think it comes full circle, right? Being an inspiration to little kids or to the fans, right? Yeah. Being an inspiration to your colleagues, being that type of person that becomes a successful salesperson, and now you can then with your book demonstrate another inspiration to people that, hey, you know what, it's okay. Especially in this time, right, with all the things that are going on, that that no matter what you have going on in your career, that you still have the skills to be able to continue to move forward. So
absolutely. And now, quite honestly, Dan, now is the time to let those skills shine more than ever, right?
Absolutely.
I feel like now is not a time across every aspect of, at least in my life, is where I've kind of dug in a little bit more here, Now isn't a time to sit in the background, sit on the sideline. Now is a time to love people more than ever. It's a time to use your gifts, your God-given gifts, more than ever. It's your time to lean in on your passions more than ever, and lean in on the things that you're passionate about and things that you feel you're called to be doing. So, in my opinion, this isn't a time to kind of sit back and kind of get put in the corner per se. This is the time to step up and step out and do some things even more than you may have been doing before. I mean, again, I'm not just talking work-wise. I'm talking
Sure.
family, talking relationships-wise. That honestly has been through somebody called it a crisis, if I'm not mistaken. It was a global health pandemic, economic crisis, and I guess what we'll call racial unrest, injustice, you name it, the whole category of that. It was like, well, how are people navigating that? And so I've been really just leaning in on trying to understand and really hone in on my gifts, my God-given gifts. I've been trying to lean in on my passions, and I've been trying to just embrace my purpose here. And then really that's been my guide. I've been really just trying to, one thing through all of this is what can we do? What can I do to move things forward? What can I do to make things better? What can I do to have an impact? What can I do to help in the fight for more justice, in the fight for more equality?
Yeah, what are you fighting for, right? The spirit of the fighting. It's what are you fighting for? The spirit of the fighting Irish.
What are you fighting for? Exactly, spirit of the fighting Irish, right? So what can I do? And that's the question I ask myself all the time. What can I'm talking me, personally do to have an impact on I'll say a lot of things, but on just another person's life, right? I started up a weekly video series where I reflect on things that happened through the week, and I try to give words of encouragement. And my whole thing was, all my life I received so many kind of nuggets, I call them, like little nuggets of inspiration that I picked up over time from people. And so this little video message that I record is my way of giving out some nuggets myself. And my goal when I started it, I said, if I have one thing that God puts in my spirit and my heart to share with somebody, if there's one person that's inspired or influenced or encouraged by one thing I say, it's worth it. Recording a 5-10 minute video, it's worth
That's it.
Like, if I can touch one person. And so it's been well received. It's in my personal private account right now because I'm not ready for like the big world yet to be open to the wide public. But I mean, it's something that's been so good for me through the crisis, right? It's been something that's served as a way for me to reflect more, to think thoughtfully about what's happening in our world, to really reflect on what I can do personally, right? To be more engaged, to be more involved in my own family, the people in my house, but in my broader family, within my community, right?
In your village?
Within my village, right? Within the Notre Dame, right? Village or community. And that's really what's been driving me through these last 6-8 months, is really just honing in on doing what I can to move us forward across the board. And I've done some things. I mean, again, a lot of it is just trying to, I try to encourage people to really just lead from where they are. A lot of times people feel you have to have a certain title to be a leader, or they feel you have to be in a certain role. It's not the case. You can step up and you can do things, no matter how small they are, to have an impact on somebody's life. And you never know what that action or whatever you do to help one person, how that can transform an entire future for somebody or a group of people. People are watching what we do, right? There's people, I'm running a half marathon in a couple of weeks. I've been posting online about running this thing. And little did I know, right? There are some of my colleagues even who have been inspired to run because of me running. And I'm just like, I'm not running. It's not for a competition. I'm not getting paid to run. I don't have any run sponsors, right? But I'm doing it because of my health and all that stuff. And so, but you just don't know what type of inspiration you can be in someone else's life. And so that's kind of what's been driving me through all this. It's been one of the more emotionally draining and challenging times in my life these last 6 months. I thank God that I started these weekly messages because they've allowed me the ability to try to channel that energy into something positive and hopefully impactful. But I don't just talk about these things, Dan, right? You gotta do, I have a saying, I say you gotta talk about it and be about it. Some people say, don't talk about it, just be about it. I say, no, you talk about it and be about it. Meaning you can talk about things and have conversations about things and say one thing, but you gotta put it into action, right? You gotta do something as well. You can't just give a great speech and not follow it up with some actions behind it. And so that's, again, what's been fueling me through everything is not just saying words or putting words out there, but I try to truly live the things that I'm talking about. When I put these reflections out there, I'm talking to myself and encouraging myself as much as I am encouraging someone else. So you got to talk about it and you got to be about it. You got to have these difficult conversations about race. You got to talk about what happened today in the Breonna the case, right? You can't just act like nothing happened today. I was emotionally, it hit me to the core when I got the news about Breonna Taylor Day, right? In the case, I can't ignore that. I can't suppress that. I can't not step on that, right? I got to talk about it, and then I got to actually be about it. So like, what can I do, right, in my life from where I am here in South Bend? What are some things I can do to have an impact to hopefully, so that something like that doesn't happen to anybody else, period, ever. No one should die like that, period. Like, it's just completely unacceptable. And so it's like, I get frustrated by it, but I also try to take time and think through what can I actually do to move things forward in my household, in my community, at Notre Dame. What are some things I can do through my work, right? So I try to channel challenges and frustrations and try to do good through these things. And that honestly has buoyed my spirits through everything that's going on. Like, this pandemic is messing with my head. I got asthma, right? So I'm like freaking out over that. I'm a fundraiser, okay? If there's an economic crisis, it's hard to fundraise during the economic crisis. That's got me stressed out. I'm Black, okay? Literally, I'm just Black. And by the mere nature of me being Black, I'm at a higher risk of getting pulled over. I'm at a higher risk of something like what happened to Breonna Taylor happening. There's just these things that are inherent, that are just part of every day, right? That you're just trying to process and deal with. And so I just try to process and deal with them. I've been trying to just, again, leverage my gifts, lean into my passions, follow my purpose to get through all of this. That's going on. I don't even know what your question was, Dan. Sorry, I'll talk.
No, actually, you know, you've answered my question, which was, you know, what I really wanted to ask you was, you know, is there a call to action for our audience? And you've done it, right? Talk about it and be about it.
Yeah.
And if we're going to follow, you know, the Notre Dame theme for this year, being a force for good, you're an inspiration for that. You know, you've got a wonderful message, and the fact that you're being active and proactive to actually get the message out and being about it. I mean, you're in many ways, you're still in that leprechaun role. You know, I mean, you can't let it go, Mike.
A leprechaun. You're always a leprechaun forever.
You can't let it go. So, so anyway, I want to turn it over to. Thank you, by the way, for all of your comments today. It really is an inspiration to me as well. I'd like to turn it over to the audience. For the audience, if you have any questions for Mike, please go to the Q&A box and type in your questions, and we will present them to Mike. So we'll wait on that. And by the way, there's somebody that might want to say hello to you. Mr. David Sweet, is that you? Turn on your camera there, sir.
Is that David Sweet? Wow. Is that
David, are you there?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you got a hold of David. I've been trying to track him down and interview him for this book.
David Sweet, are you there? Maybe he's having technical difficulties, but everyone, David Sweet, the leprechaun right before Mike Brown.
Yep. Great guy, great family. Love the Sweet family. Love David, man. And hey, text me back so I can get your interview finished up, man.
Yeah, excellent. So, David, unfortunately, we've got a little technical difficulty there. So, Mike, I have another question for you. So, what is your favorite or the coolest sports related memory that you had, being the leprechaun on the sidelines?
A lot of memories, man. I'd say one of the more cool moments. Man, that's a tough question, Dave, because I got my first pep rally where I came out, a lot of adrenaline flowing, and I tripped over some megaphones when I tripped out there, so that was fun. I've had some good battles with other mascots, and really, I would probably say that's probably the one, right? So I got the Pittsburgh Panther story. I tackled the Pittsburgh Panther as they were going to commercial on CBS. That was fun. It was the last game in Pitt Stadium. That was a blast. But probably one of the most vivid and just exciting memories was actually one of my first battles, a mascot battle. It was against Michigan State, Sparty. Now, if you know Sparty,
sure,
it's like Sparty's big.
It's got a big
the whole night. So we're playing Michigan State at home. I don't know what I'm doing, so I talked to the guy, behind the scenes. I said, "Hey, you tackle me, then I'll tackle you." And this is my first time doing this. I don't really know how it's going to work. So he comes over to our side, puts his elbow down on me. He's cheering. The crowd's booing him all in the student section over there. And then I take my hat off. I take my shirt off or my jacket off, and I kind of come back to life. And I jump on top of him. I beat him down. It was bad. I mean, playfully beat him down. He didn't get hurt. He wasn't injured. But we had a wonderful time. But the crowd just erupted, and just hearing the crowd and that emotion, that was a memory that I'll never forget.
That's hilarious. Hey, by the way, who's that? Who's that over there?
What's going on, man? Is that a leprechaun mask?
Is that a leprechaun mask? That is so cool.
I love it.
David, can't hear you. Can you unmute maybe? We can see you, David.
Let's see if Richard has a question here.
All right, so we've got a question here from, let's see here. You mentioned that ND has institutional structural flaws as it relates to equity. Can you discuss a couple of them and what the university should do to address them?
Yeah, so great question, Richard. I didn't specifically say institutional. I'm joking. So look, what I said was it has flaws like we all have flaws. We have things that we can improve on in every aspect of our lives, right? So the number one thing, and I'll talk the things that directly affect me, what I do, and what I see on campus every time, right? So I fully believe the university can and should be much more diverse in terms of, I'll just say racial or ethnic diversity, just to start with that. Diversity to me is more than race, it's more than ethnicity. I feel like in some respects, right, my dorm that I lived in was very diverse in terms of where everyone was from and what people's majors were, and there's value in that. So I appreciate that. But I'm talking about actual racial and ethnic diversity. I'm pretty public about the fact that I think our campus needs to drastically increase, number one, the number of racial and ethnic minority students on campus, number one, as students. I think we need more staff members of more ethnic or racial backgrounds. I think we need more leaders, okay, at the university of varying ethnic or racial backgrounds. So I don't have statistics, or I don't have, I can't sit here and say that there's some kind of system that's causing these things to be the way that they are right now. But what I can tell you is that when it becomes an area of focus, when you put your attention on it, when you give it a priority and you focus on these efforts, that's when, like anything else, changes do happen. I actually gave a speech. I mean, again, I talked to the leaders within my team, and I told them very boldly, and I spoke from the heart. I said, look, there's a lot of things that we can change and we can see get better. I said, and I believe, I really do believe they will get better because it's Notre Dame. It's the reason I came here. Notre Dame has a standard of excellence like no other. When Notre Dame gets serious about something, when they get behind something, when they back something, it is remarkable what can happen. The change that can come when it decides to, what I say, put muscle into something. And so I just encourage the university across all avenues and all aspects. If we just want to talk about just more diversity, period, right, in terms of ethnic, racial diversity, let's put some more muscle into that. So again, I'm not saying they haven't done a good job, right? I don't know the numbers, right? You can look at the statistics in the incoming freshman classes. There's definitely been improvement, right? I'm an improvement, right, from when I came there as a student. There's definitely been progress. So I'm not knocking what's been done. I just, like areas of my life, I may be good at something right now, but it doesn't mean I can't get better. So I want to see us just get even more serious and put even more muscle behind having a more diverse, ethnic, racial-wise makeup of the entire campus. So that's one thing, Richard, to answer your question.
Gotcha. Well, that's great. And so, after you, I mean, there's been 2 Black Leprechauns just last year, right? Sam Jackson and Lynette Wookie. You know,
Yeah.
what did it mean to you to have 2 other or any Black Leprechauns follow you?
Yeah, man, it was special. It was encouraging. It inspired me. I was happy that it happened while I was there working, right? So I was able to witness it. I had a front row seat to the whole thing, and so I was encouraged and inspired by the fact that we had a first female and more Black students actually get it. Here's what was actually discouraging, Dan. The fact that it took 20 years. Okay, right. So while I'm elated and I'm excited that it happened, and trust me, I'm 99% excited and 1%, was discouraged by the fact that it took my tryout for Leprechaun took place on April 9th, 1999. We didn't have a second Black Leprechaun until April 12th, 2019. So literally 20 years from the date that I got the role was the next person. I hope it's not 20 years before there's another minority, right? And again, like, no knock against, I'm talking Dave's one of the Leprechauns, a lot of respect and admiration for everyone who willfully and decides to put on a green suit and run around like a crazy person. So they get all the respect in the world, no matter who they are. So I'm excited for anybody who's in the role. I'm excited for Sam and Lynette, but I'm also excited for Connell, who's a Leprechaun this year. The first Leprechaun we have had who's born in Rhode Isle, right? So I'm just as excited for him. And I'm excited about where the role will go from here. I hope more students are inspired to try out, right? And may rethink, their reasoning for not doing so because they aren't maybe seeing someone who looks like them in the role. So we haven't had an Asian Leprechaun yet. So
no, there's always time, right? By the way, April 9th, 1999, is a special day because Carrie's daughter, Molly, was born that day. Look at that.
Day. It was a great day.
And so David's audio is not working. David, can you give us a raise the roof? Can you give us a raise the roof there? Or can you get, actually, Mike, he might only be able to see you, Mike. If you can just go like this. David, can you see that? Oh, maybe you can't see it anymore, but we can see him. So anyway, thank you so much, Mike, for joining us. Thank you for David for joining us, the sweet surprise, the pun intended sweet surprise. I'd like to thank the audience for joining us this evening. It's been a great evening, and for information on future events, now we can see his face because he took off the mask. What's happening? For information on future events, follow the Notre Dame Club of Pittsburgh at ND Pitt Club on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and ndpitclub.com. This has been Racial and Social Justice Beyond the Dome. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay safe and go Irish.
Go Irish. Let's go.
Go Irish. Thanks so much.
Hey, thank you, Dan. This was wonderful, man. Thanks for creating this space and for having these conversations. I joked with my colleagues today. I said, this is the 6th episode of the event. And I said, you've gone through your starting 5 and now you've moved to the 6th man. So now I'm off the bench. That's okay. I'm happy to be on the
you know what? It's a real pleasure, really. And you're an inspiration to all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, actually, we might have more questions here. Hang on. Haley DeMaria says, thank you for allowing those of us from outside Pittsburgh to crash the party. All right. Laura Rupp says thank you. Marilee Williams also says thank you. All right. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you. Take care. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right, thanks, Mike.